Hey there, it's Christian from 7Gamer Network, and I'm here with another review for you. Every now and then somebody comes along in our hobby that is fresh and new and exciting, or it just executes on what it's trying to do so very well that a really compelling product is created. This is a review for the game Necromolds. As it says on the Kickstarter video, you mold them, you fight them, you smash them, you recast them. And that's because Necromolds is a war game, but it's a war game where you use plasticine, Play-Doh, clay, miniatures to fight against one another. And so you'll be battling two opposing armies against one another. It's a two-player game. But there's something about the design and the tactile experience that this is that really elevates it to something much more than just a war game. Now, it's clearly aimed with much appeal to kids, but us older kids really need to pay attention too, because I think there's something quite special here. So in this review, I'm going to have a look at these rather unique components, have a look at the production values, and I'll also discuss the actual gameplay experience. What's it like as a war game system? Is it actually any good? And then finally, you can decide whether this is a game to add to your collection or not. But first, how does the game work? Well, you're going to use some Necromolds spell clay, some plasticine, to mould your army using these Necromolds. And you'll probably have 2, 3, 4, 5 of these Necromolds to make your army with. You'll use as much spell clay as you can, and that's going to be the equivalent of both having a sort of even number of points, say, in a traditional war game. And then you'll set your army up and you'll duke it out on the battlefield. And as individual monsters lose their various face-offs, they will be squished by the caster rings, and the winner will be the one with the last monster standing. Now, of course, there's much more to it than just that, but now that you've got a gist of the gameplay, I'd really like to take a closer look at some of these components. I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, and there's something about this box art that for me really evokes that kind of era. It is all Saturday morning cartoons of Masters of the Universe and Mask and Rude Dog and the Dweebs. The art really is superb throughout, and the artist Thad has done a wonderful job of bringing this world together. There's something about the colour palette that's that sort of necromantic, wizardy greens and purples that works beautifully well. There's also fantastic art on everything in the game, so things like the board game itself, the board that you're going to fight on itself. They've done almost a sort of a Where's Wally type thing with the picture, and the back of the rulebook gives you a bunch of fun things to try and spot on that really nice piece of board art. It's even little things like the design of the box with that little window to be able to see in, and you can see that Necromold and you can see that caster ring waiting there for you to unleash it. It is really nicely produced, and it doesn't stop there. They've got these monster expansion packs, although I've decanted somewhat into the main core box. But I mean, just look at the game, the design on it, the gorgeous art all the way around it, telling you what you've got in there, because these monster packs provide you with another pot of spell clay, but 2 new Necromolds to use in your battles as well. These, with this window that we're showing you what's inside, really do once again make me think it's really hard to imagine kids not falling in love with this, and even some of the big kids. These are going to look amazing on retail shelves all around the world. Now, I could really wax lyrical about the various components in this game. They really are stellar, but I do want to focus on 2 in particular. That's the stars of the show, the Necromolds themselves, and then those little caster rings. So, the Necromolds themselves. These are truly brilliant pieces of engineering. Clint Bohatti, the designer, worked, I believe, with Panda Games Manufacturing who were involved in Wingspan and some other big games. So there's actually some real pedigree behind the plastics manufacture going on here. And they kind of needed it because, of course, when you're squishing bits of plasticine around everywhere and trying to build a game out of that, like that could get really messy and could be annoying and fiddly. Wow, did they do a great job on these. Even to the point where it's really easy to clean them after you've used them because the insides just pop out really nicely for a quick, easy clean, and then they go straight back in. Even the actual tactile experience of just holding it and using it, it really is something quite fun and pleasurable to just hold and have in your hands and to squish those Necromolds and make the monsters out of it. In fact, I've even caught myself, of course it was as I was researching for this review, I found myself just sitting and making these various Necromolds monsters of an evening whilst I've had a movie on or something like that. They really are that pleasurable and enjoyable to use in and of themselves. And just take a look at, I'm just doing a close-up here for you to see what it is to actually make one of them. Again, this process it's quick, it's easy, it really isn't very messy like it could have been, and it's a lot of fun. And I think you'll agree that as you look at the insectomite here that's coming out of it, I mean, it's got some really fun detail on it, and these are really nicely designed creatures and monsters. Secondly then, the other thing I wanted to just talk about was these caster rings. I defy you, the first time you use one of these to smash an opponent's monster, to not split into a big broad grin on your face. It really is endlessly satisfying squishing these things. I had a lot of fun, even just making the videos for you to have a look at here. Now there's a whole bunch of different caster rings. They've done a kind of collect 'em all type thing. I think there's over 20 in this first wave. And what's really nice is how they're different. Well, they actually leave a little design when you squish, and they're really cool designs. They really fit with the theme. They've even got these green ones which are glow in the dark, and they really do glow in the dark. Everything about it is very exciting and beautifully produced. And the caster rings, as I said, are an endless source of satisfaction to use. It really does all look and feel wonderful. It is a tactile experience to enjoy this. It's a bit of a feast for the senses, and I'll probably use the word phrase tactile experience a few times because that is how I would characterize playing Necromolds. Other components that I really want to just mention is the rulebook. The rulebook is beautifully written. There is some fantastic lore writing in the back of it to fill out some backstory for each of the different Necromolds. That is a must read, and the writer that Clint hired to do that, great job. The dice are beautiful, and I'll talk a little bit more about those in a moment, but there is nothing about the components in this game that are a disappointment in any way, shape or form. So it all looks and feels lovely, but is there any actual game here, or is it all just shiny novelty? As a war game, and I have been playing war games for 20 plus years now, this is a cracking little system. The system is endlessly customizable, although it has built in it 3 levels. So you have a basic level set, which is great for maybe our youngest wargamers to get involved and play. And then there's the standard rule set, and you can add some extra depth to the experience by adding in some advanced rules to that standard rule set. But even so, that standard rule set, and with even the advanced rules, is still very accessible. Army selection is fun and crucial. So you will select your army, as I said earlier, from these different Necromolds. You may have a whole number of them, but there's a lot of strategies and tactics to explore here. For example, one of the monsters that you'll be able to use is the Fungix. Now the Fungix is boosted up. It has more powerful ranged attacks when it has smashed dead allies nearby it. Noticing this, my 6-year-old said, so if I just make an army of lots of smaller monsters and send those in first, if they die, it doesn't matter, I can send in my Fungics afterwards and it'll be boosted up by all of the previously killed off allies. Yes, absolutely, son, that's a great strategy. And that's just one little example of the sort of various strategic combos that you can build into your army selection. And then they really do play out like that, as he then used that strategy to soundly thrash me and my Insectomite army in our next battle. What makes this system a real hit for me is really down to two things, and that's the command dice that you use to give orders to your Necromolds and the little gems. The command dice are great because they are rolled at the start of a round, and then you assign them to your Necromolds, and that will determine what your Necromolds then do in that round. So they will be moving, or they'll be shooting, or they'll be using a magic ability if they have one, and then there's also a wild side which you can use for any of the other three. There's lots of really good decisions to be made here at the start of every round. Which Necromolds am I going to activate at all? But how am I going to activate them? Do I want these ones to move? Do I want all of them to move a little bit? Do I want these ones to move a lot, to maybe streak off into battle really quickly? Do I want to focus on doing lots of ranged attacks? Am I in range to do that? Do I need to move first before I can do the range? Do I want to use up magical abilities, or do I want to save gems, which I'm going to come on to for later in the game? You've got so many interesting decisions to make before you've actually moved any monsters and started rolling any attack and defense dice. The gems are a resource that you can use to kind of boost up your attacks or your defense rolls. You'll spend gems to add dice to your rolls. Now there's a couple of things that this does that's really nice. The main thing is that it kind of allows you to have a resource management aspect to the game. It ups the skill cap a little bit, because if you manage your gems really well, it means you can even do things like power up, say, a little Mudmump who finds himself in combat against some great big horrible Necromold like an Insectomite. And if you've got enough gems, you can really magically imbue that little Mudmump with some extra power to maybe take down that bigger, larger opponent. And that makes for some really fun little narrative moments in the game too. Not forgetting, of course, that it actually genuinely affects the outcome of the game. And so managing your resources really well definitely increases your chances of winning overall in Necromolds battles. You even earn gems in combat. It's a dice roll result. And so even if you get beaten, often as almost a catch-up mechanic, you could be building up some gems and using it on future turns to give you more chance of winning some combats. There's even some rules for using things like spells in the game. And I can really see, in terms of the expandability of Necromolds, apart from the obvious things like more monsters, more of those definitely please, and the fun things like caster rings, there's so much scope for things that you can add to this wargame. For instance, you have new boards with maybe new game modes, new terrain that you can work in, and something like spell books, maybe from different schools of wizarding magic. There is a lot of potential for the expandability of this, which actually just makes me really quite excited and a bit giddy for the opportunities for success for Necromolds in the future. So who's this for then? Well, it's clearly marketed to be really appealing to kids and some of us big kids, but I've got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I have played many games with my 6-year-old, and they've been great taught tense battles. He's pretty good at his war games already, and we've had so much quality time together through playing this game. But my 3-year-old, who's certainly not up to wargaming rules just yet, has, since Necromolds arrived in our household, has asked to play it every single day. Because what we do is we sit with the Necromolds, we mould monsters, and we roll some dice, and we squish those monsters, and then we do it all again. And I really don't mind it, because it's lovely to do. We have some really good quality time playing together, and he loves it. In terms of just being able to get some quality time, even with my children, around part of my hobby that I love and appreciate, Necromolds has been a godsend. But remember, there's a really solid war game here, and I would have no issues having one of my buddies over and us cracking this out for a good laugh, maybe a sort of beer and snacks type war game, because, as I said, there's some good game here. Now, to top it all off, you can even let your clay dry, and you can paint these, maybe using white or black. Plasticine might be the best, but you can actually even use this as a way to introduce people really easily and cheaply to the whole world of miniatures painting as well. What more could we ask for? The only drawback I can really think with Necromolds is actually it's really hard to get hold of a copy. This is a Kickstarter game. It only raised, I say only, but it raised about $100,000, which, considering all of the plastics manufacturing and so on that's gone into this, they have done an extraordinary job at bringing this to life in such an excellent fashion on that level of investment. So Clint and his team have really done an incredible thing here. But I think they know that they're investing in something for the future that has wonderful prospects. The difficulty is it does mean that there's kind of limited numbers out there. So actually, your first battle with Necromolds might be just trying to get hold of a copy. So in conclusion, Necromolds it is a wonderful thing. It is beautiful to behold. It is a joyous and glorious tactile experience, and it's a really good game to boot that I and my family have really enjoyed playing together. It is a game that is really great for all ages and stages to come together and have a lot of fun with one another. Necromolds really should be a smash hit, pun intended. It really should be a smash hit for Clint and team, because this really is something very, very special. I mean, I can't wait for Wave 2 and the expansions and what there is to come. And in fact, I'm really hoping that Clint and team do a lot more showing us behind the scenes and what they've got coming, just so that we can get the word out there a little bit more for this fantastic product. Anyway, I hope that that's helped you decide whether this actually is something for you to add to your collection or not. If you enjoyed the video, please do click like, and hey, hit subscribe too for more content like this. And until next time, keep enjoying your gaming.